So, Max,
Okay.
first of all, you're almost 90. You have an amazing memory. So, talk to me about what it was like to write this memoir. What was the process of reliving all these memories?
Well, it took me years to do that. I was in my 80s, and it was fermenting in my head that soon I'll have to do something.
Right.
And I remembered a powerful request that my father told me in 1944 when they were selected out, and we had only seconds to say goodbye through the wire fence in Auschwitz. They were in a quarantine area. And I knew, and he knew, and my uncle knew that this is going to be our last, that's the last time that we'll see each other. And my father gave me a blessing through the wire, which is a custom that we had in the family Friday night. Coming home from the synagogue, my father used to bless all the children. May God bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May he bring you peace. And he told me that if I manage to survive, I must tell the world what happened here.
Do you feel like you were tougher than most people mentally to be able to go through a process like this? Like, I've read Viktor Frankl's book, which is really about the psychology of people going through the process at the time, how they were able to keep going, man's search for meaning. How did you get through it mentally?
Well, I read that book years after, of course.
Right.
And he was right. Those people who were there and they went into a deep depression. And I didn't know what depression was when I was 15 years old in Auschwitz. I thought it was a contagious sickness, and I was so worried that it might get me, and I just didn't know. So I realized after years later, and so he writes that those that had a why, they found a how.
That's so
So
true.
those that had a goal to survive, you had to be on your top performance every second, even though you were starving, you had hardly any clothing, and in spite of all those things, you had to put all those things aside and look at the scenery. I used to look at the scenery, the trees, whatever, where it was snow or freezing. I was always looking at other things than the misery and the clothing that I had.
Yeah.
And I was determined to put one foot in front of the other.
Now, I know now, obviously, it's so nice to see you all healthy and fleshy and meaty, and, you've had some food. But, like, when you were going through this, you probably were skeletal, too.
Well, it's amazing that, I don't know, I weighed maybe 70 kilograms or something. I was truly a skeletal person living on a 300-calorie diet, and yet I could walk 15 kilometers a day. But, hunger was a terrible thing. I've seen the best and the worst. People would kill for a crumb of bread. So what happened, I was liberated on May the 6th, 1945 by the Americans, an American unit called the 761st Black Panther Tank Battalion. And I was liberated, but was I free? I was down and out. It was the last few weeks, and I was suffering from typhus. I had very high fever. And as they say, my clock was running out. Had they been a half an hour or an hour later, I don't think I would have made it. And,
Really?
really,
that
it was
close?
And it took me 3 years to really become a normal person.
So if we flash forward to today then, we see, I've been seeing swastikas, and I never saw them a few years ago. I've seen them spray painted on playgrounds, on streets. We're starting to see them in the news again. When you see this, what do you think? What message do you have for people today?
Well, when I or survivors see this, it sends shockwaves through our stomachs. I cannot believe that this is happening here in Canada. I came here 70 years ago, and I thought that I left all these horrible memories behind. And we had 70 wonderful years. We started families, and we had good years. And for us survivors, this is a reminder of what can happen. You see, this is the way it started out in Nazi Germany. It started with words, and then it ends in terrible places. When I talk about this to students, and I tell them, Pandora's box has been opened, and it's very hard to put evil back into the box. And the only way we're going to cope with this or put this hate out of business, we need to stand up. Everybody needs to stand up and say, you cannot do this. We will not allow you to do this in our schools, in our homes, in our cities.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't, then our way of life and our freedom
Might just disappear.
will disappear.
We won't look away.
Thank you. Good.